Let's turn the power on. It's initializing. Ouch! Both axes, no response. This is the most terrifying error message that any computerized telescope can show you. In fact, it's worse than just a blank screen because that error message means there is a hardware failure somewhere in your telescope's control system, but it doesn't tell you where. From this point on, your telescope is going to be manually operated. Welcome back to the Reflactor channel. You know, fixing this error is a little bit like fixing the air conditioning in your car. It's either going to cost you $50 or $2,000. I'm going to walk you through all the potential fixes to this scary error message, and I'll go from cheapest to most expensive. Stay tuned to the end because later on, I'm going to share a fun fact that Orion support told me about these Synscan controllers. You don't want to miss that. So the first thing you need to do is check the cables. Make sure that all the fittings are tight. All right. Come up here. Make sure the motor controller cables are tight there. And then down here. Make sure that didn't come loose. Turn the power back on. Ouch! So if checking the cable connections didn't work, the next step up is to actually possibly replace the cables. This cable that goes from the handset to the motor controller is a very special Orion cable. It has an Ethernet connector on one end and I believe an RJ12 connector on the other end. It looks like a phone. This is actually slightly smaller than that connector. So again, that's about $20 from Orion. You can give that a try. The other cable that goes from the motor controller block here all the way over to the bottom azimuth motor, that's just an Ethernet cable. So if you have an Ethernet cable, you can try that. Ouch! Next up is the power source. In my research, I read that sometimes the power source is not as strong as needed. So if you've got it hooked up to, say, a car battery, you might want to get one of these power cables that goes into a wall AC plug, or you can get one of these talent cell batteries. These work really well for the GOTO telescopes. And give that a try, see if that works. Ouch! Now let's talk about the handset controller. This is the $100 to $150 solution. This is a Synscan version 3. This is a Synscan version 4, and now they have the Synscan version 5, which looks kind of like this, but it doesn't have the horns right here. So what could possibly be wrong? Well, the first thing we want to do is you would want to go ahead and go through upgrading the firmware on these. You can follow the instructions on the Orion website. I'll also put a link to a video where I show how to do it on one of these hand controllers. Essentially, you hook it up via a secondary cable to your computer, and you run a tiny little program on your computer and it loads the firmware into the system here. Now, if the hand controller, if that doesn't fix it, then it's possible that the hand controller is just broken. It's fried, it won't work. So you'd have to replace it. Well, as it turns out, on most of the GOTO scopes that I've used, either the version 3, version 4, or version 5 will work on those. So if you can find one of these used, then that might be a great solution to the problem. Or you can just buy a new version 5 straight from Orion, and they're between $100 and $150 depending on whether or not they're having a sale.
Hi folks, this is an update. As of 2024, it seems that new Synscan hand controllers from Orion have either been discontinued or backordered. For the time being, it looks like your only choice is to buy used.
There is one last resort with these though, and that is to make sure that the button pads are functioning properly. If you've been having a lot of problems where the buttons don't register when you're pushing them, then that may give a clue, and this will actually pop up when I show you that little trick that Orion support told me about these controllers. But let's go ahead and let's clean the button interface and I'll show it to you. It's pretty easy, you just flip them over. There's a few Phillips head screws in here. Okay, so you may have 2 more screws before you can lift this off, so let's go ahead and bend this up a little bit. You don't want to break anything, but we're just going to take a look at the keypad here. Let's just take a look at these. Now we're going to use a technique that is from the old days of the slot car racing, and that is we're going to clean these contacts with an old eraser. And I'm just going to gently go over these contacts, these gold contacts. Move some of the residue off. We're going to clean them with some rubbing alcohol. Set this down there. Fall into the holes again. And gently fold this back. Try not to break any ribbon cables or wires or anything like that. And so this technique is, as I mentioned, it works for fixing pretty much any time you run into an issue where you have non-responsive buttons on one of these Synscan controllers. I've used it many, many times. Your experience may vary, of course. Proceed with caution. Okay, so what if you've gone to all that effort and that doesn't fix the issue? You've perhaps purchased a replacement Synscan and that doesn't fix the issue. Well, that leaves the very expensive solution. But let's say that you did replace the hand controller with a new one and that did not get rid of the both axes no response error message. Well, that leaves the last most expensive fix, and that is to basically open this up, and you're going to have to replace the motor control board, the computer control board that's in here. Now, there's two issues. If you're the original owner, contact Orion, and their support might be able to help you. If you're not the original owner, Orion generally won't sell you any spare parts, so that means you have to use this as a manual telescope from now on, or, as somebody in the Facebook groups told me, you can buy a mount from Skywatcher, just the mount, and the parts are actually interchangeable. So you pull all the parts off of the donor mount from Skywatcher and put them in here. That might also imply that you have to change out the parts down here in the azimuth drive. I'm not sure. I have not done this. But again, that's the most expensive last resort option. Fortunately, I've only run into this once, and the solution turned out to be to replace the handset controller. I posted the issue on a Facebook group, and a very generous person there named Alan from Florida told me that he had an extra Synscan version 3, and he mailed it to me, and I hooked it up to the telescope, and to my surprise, it worked great. This is what you should see when you turn it on. It should say initializing. Now, instead of going to the caution and the error message, it should show either, the message that says don't point a telescope at the sun, or in this case it says the Synscan version, and then it says the warning, don't point your telescope towards the sun. And then if you push enter again, it should take you straight into the setup. Hey, this would be a great time to push the like button and subscribe if you've found this video helpful. So here's the interesting thing I promised that I would tell you. This is a Synscan 4 controller. This is just like this one. This one's actually a broken one. These two are identical, except this one is not broken. It doesn't have whatever the problem is that one has. When I contacted Orion and asked them about it, they actually did respond a little bit, and they said to check out the button functionality because of the escape button. Apparently, if the escape button is pushed down while you're booting up the telescope, it will actually generate that exact same error, the both axes, no response. So let me show you what I mean. I'll turn the power on here. Oop. So it has to go past the initializing, and once it gets to the caution, push the button, see if we can get it to generate that same error. There we go, both axes, no response. So I have artificially created that error message that has ruined so many GOTO telescopes. Now I'll go ahead, I'm going to turn the telescope off and turn it on, but not touch any buttons. You can see how if you had a malfunctioning escape key, it might accidentally trip the system into showing that error message. Warning, never use, okay. All right, so there you go. But I thought that was pretty interesting. Again, make sure you clean your keys, as I mentioned, the underpads on the keys, and make sure the escape key is not accidentally triggering this error. That could be a very expensive error just from dirty connections underneath there. But anyways, if you found this useful, please push the like and subscribe button. And if you found any other solutions to this particular terrible error message, please leave a message down below. All right, clear skies, everybody.